fashion. In this case, Stephen Allen from New York City, a 2008 winner of Best Fashion Designer by GQ. And he'll be interviewed today by Crystal Vick, who is the fashion editor over at Google Product Search, and Farzad Sharif, who works in the mobile apps lab, tasting away on his profile. So without further ado, I open up to these guys. Thank you.
One little correction. I wasn't voted the best. I was nominated for the CFD, but I actually didn't win. So I just want to.
You're the best to us, though.
Yes,
so.
in our eyes.
In Google's eyes. So. Also, really a beautiful and attractive Google audience today. So give yourselves a round of applause for that. So yep, we're joined here with Stephen Allen. Some of you may know him. Some of you may not. I'll give you a little background on who he is. You started as a retail outlet, curating other brands and selling those in your store in New York. And then around 1999, you launched the Stephen Allen collection of menswear and then ultimately women's wear as well. Today, Stephen Allen has 10 stores in the States. I believe that's 6 in the New York area, 3 in Southern California, and 1 in San Francisco that just opened in Hayes Valley. You guys should visit it. It's awesome. I was there yesterday. Crystal and I both were. Now, the brand is carried in over 300 stores worldwide. You've done lines for Uniqlo, Dockers, Keds, and a few others I'm sure I'm leaving off.
Urban Outfitters.
Nike, Urban Outfitters, Larkin Wolf. And so anyway, we're really happy to be here in conversation with you and want to find out about the Stephen Allen story. And we'll begin by hearing a little bit about your story, the personal Stephen Allen story. So where were you born and raised?
I grew up in New York, in the city, and I went to an art high school there, art and design. And I never really had any interest in fashion. I mean, I had interest in it, but I never, especially at this high school was really kind of like the fashion department was very arrogant. It was just sort of, and I was taking a lot of pictures. So I had taken a class at the 92nd Street Y, a photography class. And then when I applied to high school, you have to have a portfolio, and so I ended up getting in on photography, and then I switched to film and video production, thinking that if I like photography, I'll definitely like making films. And it was pretty interesting, but I found that I really enjoyed photography more than film. And so I did that for a while, and then I went to California, went to Arizona and then California for school.
That's right, you went to USC.
Yeah.
That's where you studied entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Great, yeah. And I think that's a good segue for how you got your start into fashion.
Sure, yeah, so as Googlers, we're all pretty passionate about the projects and the products that we work on. So we would really love to hear what sparked your passion in fashion. I know you just mentioned that you weren't actually originally interested in it, so I'd like to see, or like to hear.
Well, I was interested in it just from my, from a self standpoint. I mean, I was always interested, but I didn't see myself as a designer really, because I never studied it. I didn't think that that was really a possibility to kind of like go into fashion design without having gone to FIT or Parsons or something like that. But I did certainly feel comfortable sort of in the retail space. I grew up, my family had a couple stores in New York, jewelry stores, so I kind of witnessed firsthand kind of how very mom and pop, I mean, there was not even a cash register, it was like a shoebox, and the cash went there, and there was like, fights going on back and forth, in the store, and the customers were like, what's going on here? So I kind of like, for me it was, kind of like I knew the space, I felt comfortable in the space, but I also felt like I wanted to sort of do something different, in that.
So what was that leap like, moving from retail to actually sitting down and be like, I want to design something, I want to design
Well, it didn't even go from retail to design, it actually went from retail. So what happened was I had an export company first, and I was doing importing and exporting watches. And it was like this business that sort of felt, it felt very shady. It felt like it was like something that wasn't legal, but it was legal, but it was really like going, and it was, I don't know if you remember when swatches were really crazy popular, and people were like, oh, can I buy that, watch off your wrist and stuff like that. And so my parents had this store, and I used to go in the store a lot, and then I started working in the store, managing it. And my mom one day said, you need to get these watches. Everyone wants these watches. And they had turned it down. They were offered the swatch I guess, to have it as an account, but at the time it was plastic and they were selling jewelry and like, we don't want to sell that. But then eventually when they realized that like everyone wants it and they wanted it, so then I had to go and buy it. So I went around and bought it retail. Like I'd go to department stores and buy it. And in the beginning it was fairly easy. Well, not easy, but you'd get like one watch here, a couple watches there. And then everyone started getting into that. So then I had to kind of go outside of New York and go to Dallas and Hawaii and eventually Dubai and like all over the place to get these watches. And then I saved money from that business to open my first store. So then, so getting back to your point, you said from retail to design. So what ended up happening was I finally had the store, and in the beginning I really knew about accessories. I knew about, you know, jewelry especially and watches, but then the bags I knew about just from having gone to the accessory shows. And growing up, you know, my father was a jewelry designer, so I kind of like had that whole dynamic of him having his designs, but then also going and buying other designs. And so I started with that, and we used to get written up, and whenever someone would write about the store, they always like, oh, great jewelry, great watches, but they never really mentioned the clothing. So it was like a personal frustration. I was just like, I gotta get this clothing thing. So, and I didn't really understand it because I went to the shows. You know, they have like different trade shows where you go and buy, you know, clothing, and they have all these different vendors. And I thought, okay, I'm buying the right ones. And then I realized one day that there was nothing about the clothing selection that was really that unique. It was the same clothing that, you know, these department stores are going and buying from. You know, so what's really differentiating the store? And at the same time I was learning, it was like every day, you know, I'd go on an appointment and they were like, this is cut on the bias, this is A-line, and I would like write it down, and then at the end of the day I would call a friend of mine that was in the clothing business. What is A-line? What is, you know, I really didn't know anything about it. And then eventually what started happening was the designers that I was selling in the store, the accessory designers had friends. And they would say like, oh, would you want to see, you know, my friend makes these great dresses, and my friend just started making, you know, these pants, and they're, like for example, the hipster, like low-waisted jeans, you know, the first designers that I remember ever selling that were like Daryl Kay and Rebecca Dannenberg, and at that time they didn't even wholesale. So I would go, and then I remember going to her store, and she had this tiny little shop in the East Village, and they had, you know, I sat down with them, and it was her and her husband, and I said, well, can I buy it? Can I buy it for the store? And they're like, just the whole idea of it, they hadn't even thought about. We wrote the order on a napkin, you know, and and then her husband came and delivered it, and like we started selling out of it. And then New York Magazine wrote about us around 1998 or 99 as sort of like the place to go for like new and emerging brands. And we developed this reputation. And then from there, what ended up happening was other stores started coming to the store and kind of like scoping us out, like we got to find out, like where's he getting these designers, you know? And then the designers were then selling to all these stores, and it was frustrating for me because I'm going through all this work, and I'm going to Bushwick and all these places to find these designers, and then all of a sudden it's like in some store like 2-3 blocks away. So what ended up happening was one of the designers had approached me, and they said, well, what are we supposed to do? We don't know who to sell to and who not to sell to. So the first light that went off was kind of like, well, this would be good. She said, well, maybe you could do our wholesale sales. So I thought, well, this could be good for me, because then I kind of protect myself as a retailer. I'm not going to sell to a store across the street. But then I thought, from a bigger picture, you know, designers need this. So, you know, all over the country and all over the world, there's conflicts of distribution everywhere. So wherever you are, there's one store that wants a brand, and another store sees it in that store, and they're like, oh, that's a good brand, I want it. And then you have to figure out who to sell to and who pays the bills and who doesn't. So we started, that was the next business that we did, was repping designers. And then from there, what ended up happening was we took this space that was like the size of a kitchen above, the whole store was 500 feet, and then above it was this little mezzanine that was like 250 feet. And we started getting in, you know, Louis Boston and Isetan from Japan and people like that. And then all of a sudden we outgrew the space, and it was literally like almost comical. Like buyers would come in the store, and the manager at the time would, you know, say, excuse me, and then they'd go upstairs and they'd help the buyer, and then another person would help the retail customers, and then they'd come down, and it was kind of crazy. So I realized, like, we gotta like take this seriously. This is a real business. So then we took a space in Tribeca on the second floor and that was our showroom. That was like a real thing. And then I hired people, and it was a huge expense and a tremendous learning experience. So the store at this point was doing really well, and then the showroom was just like suffering, because what would happen is, it's sort of like, imagine like a fund investing in like startup restaurants. So you have like huge failure rate, you know, and the ones that are good, you know, sort of them paying the bills was difficult because they weren't used to running their own business. So it was like, a lot of times, you know, they would, whatever profit they had, it would go towards buying new fabrics. And it was just like, it was kind of a disaster.
Did you have a hard time filling orders, you know, because these startups weren't able to produce?
Yeah, it was a hard time filling orders, and also a hard time, you know, we would get a commission because we would rep them to the store. The store would pay them, and then they would pay us. So it was like, it was a difficult thing. And then what ended up happening was we realized that we needed to somehow offset all the small, little emerging designers with bigger brands, but we didn't want to have bigger brands that were mass brands. So what we started to do is find bigger brands that we thought had integrity and made a great product, where we can add value to, you know, so like, for example, Wrangler, you know, never did a premium jean. They always had like this jean, but you couldn't even find Wrangler in New York or even LA. Like, it was like you'd have to go to like a feed store, like upstate New York. So we created a brand for Wrangler, and we did the whole branding, and we hired the models, and we did a lookbook and all this stuff. And then, you know, it really, and when they first came to us, they were selling jeans, and it was like under $20 wholesale, and they were retailing for like 23, you know? And they said, well, how much are these jeans going to sell for? And we said like 120 to 160. And they were just like, it was like silence, like all these guys from North Carolina, like what did you just say? You know? And they said, well, who's going to buy these jeans? And I said, well, we'll sell it to Bloomingdale's, and we'll sell it to Barney's, and we'll sell it to, like, you know, we named 5 or 6 stores that, you know, we thought would be good customers. And they're like, do you know that we sell to, I think it was like Walmart, you know, you really think that Barney's is going to buy something that, you know, Walmart carries? And I said, yeah, I think they will, because it's such a different product, and it's such a different target customer, you know, that I thought, you know, I said that if it was in Macy's, it might be more of a conflict than if it's in Walmart. And they're like, well, clearly Macy's is more higher end than Walmart. How can that be? And it was just sort of, it was very interesting to sort of, you know, I love the whole process of designing something and then figuring out who the customer is, and, you know, it's interesting. And so anyway, we got them to sign, they did it. We got them into all the doors that we wanted. And this is a really long explanation to your question. Sorry.
I like listening. You're good.
But I feel like it's all in context. So then we finally did this after, you know, the accountant coming to us and saying, like, look, you know, I get the store. You know, you've got the store, it's doing really well, and you're finding all these great brands, but, you know, I don't really understand the showroom business, and it's losing money, and, you know, you could have had like 5 stores by now, and, you know, and I really believed in it, because I thought that it was really critical to get the showroom piece and the store piece sort of together, because I really felt like one complements the other. And if we could represent these great designers, and then we open up stores, then we have something really special. And we can work with the designers, you know, firsthand, and know what's selling in our stores, and then help them, you know, with their lines, and be able to kind of expand. So, you know, we continued to do it, even though, you know, against the advice of the accountant. And then eventually it started to make money. And then what happened was the space where I had it in the store was now empty. So I wanted to do men's upstairs. And then I went out on the market, and what I found with men's was that, you know, all the lines were either like streetwear lines, or, you know, kind of like club clothes, or they were very formal, or they were, you know, like logo, but there really wasn't, there was a niche that I felt was like an American sensibility, but not like a tent, you know, like all the American shirts that I would try on, they just felt so big, and the sleeves were like this. So I didn't know, but I went to Midtown, and I started, you know, buying fabrics and bringing it to factories and making things, and, you know, little by little, that really, you know, it took a while. It wasn't like immediately. I mean, almost immediately people responded to it, but in doing that, it's such a different business that you need a tech designer, and you need full sample set and all this stuff. And again, it was another conversation with the accountant, sort of like, you know, are you sure you want to do this? I get the showroom now, you know, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Your accountant loves you, right?
So, but what was the?
Well, I think that
I feel like I'm not addressing.
pretty much
was there
covered
one
it.
other
No,
point?
that was great.
Okay.
Just the
And then
leap
some.
from
So, well, today you're definitely a lauded designer. You've been covered at Nylon, GQ, Vogue, and so I think a lot of people are interested in to know what is the design process for you. Is it something that changes, or do you have a sensibility that you always go back to?
There's definitely a core, like kind of like a root sensibility, I would say. For me, every season, whenever I have a design team that I work with, there's just 3 people and myself, and we always start with fabrics. So throughout the season, like immediately, once we have our presentation, the next day we're like looking at fabrics for the next season, and we start putting them up on the boards, and then we look at them for a while and see like which one sticks, and then we're, taking them off, putting them on, and then once we figure out the fabrics, then we kind of, it's very much with what I do, it's kind of organic. So you sort of have like a starting place where you sort of know, like, okay, we did really well with, either you do really well with something or you don't. It's pretty black and white. I mean, that's a good thing about fashion, is you sort of know right away. And you try to build on it and make it better, and I think that for men, it's a little bit more core and it's more continuous. And women, it's not. And it's interesting because in the beginning, and we have certain things that are very continuous and we do them every season, but in the beginning, I remember hearing the first feedback about the women's line. And we have things in the line the second season and they would be very close to what we had the previous season. And then the showroom would say, but the buyers, they already saw this. And I was like, no, they didn't see that. They saw like a version of that was made with, this and this and this. And they're like, but it's the same thing. And so it was interesting. So we really realized that with the women's line, we really had to just kind of like, okay, rethink it. Like, what's the next thing?
Yeah. We have some questions. We want to know more about what it's like for you designing for men's and women's, but I'm also curious to know where outside of sort of fashion, outside of the fabrics and prints themselves, do you look for inspiration? Film, music, television,
people on the
history,
street.
people?
It's definitely, it's all of those things. I would say being in New York, it's mostly people on the street. Like I'll see something, and it's one little thing, and it could be like the way a girl's wearing something. And like the other day I saw these pants that were like these sweatpants, and I was thinking it'd be great to do like this cuff on men's pants, but in a sort of casual fabric where it's just, sort of a hybrid pant. We did that last season. We did kind of like a mountain pant with sort of like features that were like, kind of like those belts that you just kind of cinch.
Yep.
And it was a great pant, and when we first did it, it was like, huh? It was just kind of like, well, put it on, try it. And then people started wearing it and they loved it.
Cool.
I have a random side note question, but Farzad raves about the reverse stitch that you have for men's shirts.
The one that
he probably has right now on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, that one. So that was one of our first signature things, and what happened was the side of the shirt. I don't know if you can see it. There's like
it's got a French
there's like
seam.
a little seam that sticks out, and normally that seam is on the inside, so it's normally flat. So I had asked the factory if they could reverse it, and factories and communication sometimes is like a little bit off, and I said, can you reverse that stitch? So we had basically come up with that silhouette of the shirt, the same shape, and then they reversed it, but they reversed everything. So they ended up reversing the pocket, they reversed the, so if you look at the thing, and I was like, what did you do? This whole thing is like backwards. And they're like, oh, we thought you said reverse it, and so anyway, I always put everything on. Like as soon as I get something, I'll put it on and I'll wear it. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, that is so cool, I love that. And so we just came out with it, not thinking, we had other shirts on the line too that were probably more basic, but people really responded to it and it became a signature. It was sort of funny because it's one of those things that things get copied a lot, in fashion. It's like, it's so common. And, but you wouldn't copy something like that because it's so obvious that, where it comes from. But yet we started seeing all the like copies of it, different companies. And it never worked for them because it was out of context. But it was really kind of funny to see.
It's really funny because the reversing this seemingly very deliberate thing is a sort of happy accident that the shirt came out.
But I wanted it, to me it was about, I don't have logos on anything really, and I wanted to have something that was signature, but it's so subtle. Like the whole design process, we always try to use the best possible fabric. So now like on shirtings, we're using all these Japanese fabrics that, like when you get jeans and they're selvage jeans, typically it's really expensive, and it's like, why is it expensive? Because selvage denim is narrower. It's like 44 inches instead of 60 inches. So But pretty much everything in Japan is 44 inches, so, but the fabric itself is just so nice. So most companies don't use it because it's logistically, it doesn't really make sense. And then we make almost I would say 80% or 90%, all the shirting is done in New York, and most of the women's line is done in New York. The only thing we do outside is like knitwear, outerwear, which is very hard to do in New York.
So back to the line itself, we have some slides here from your fall 2011 collection, and as we flip through those, we could discuss a little bit what is the quintessential Stephen Allen man and woman.
Yeah.
So.
This is a great model. Yeah.
She is. We like her.
And this was the first, I think this was the first or second season we started doing accessories too. And, so here she's wearing the reverse seam shirt, and then she's wearing one of the tailored blazers that this was something that was great for us too. So whenever there's a new category and then we have like a positive response to it like this, it's so amazing. So now we're doing men's suiting, and it's going to be really interesting to see like what happens. It's like Google doing a new platform or something. It's like people going to react or like what's going to happen. So this was really good, and we did those bags, and making a bag, that was the whole thing too, because we had never made bags before. And then so the whole bag process that came about because we were asked by Virgin, actually.
Virgin Australia,
yeah.
Am I right? Yeah.
Via Australia asked us to do a bag, and they said, we want you to do the perfect bag, and their idea was that they wanted the perfect bag for the perfect trip. And so we did tote bags and basic kind of stuff, but this was like such a big thing that we had to make the perfect bag. So I was like, okay,
It's a big thing to live up to.
and they're like, well, you're so focused on the perfect shirt and the perfect this, so we think you'd be a good person to do the perfect bag. So I took it on, and they needed a price because they were going to sell it on the airline, and and it was a very small. I mean, we're talking about like really, like I think 100 units or something like that. So that I'd given them a price, and then afterwards, I started designing it, and then I had to just estimate how much it was going to cost, and then it ended up being such a complicated bag because the idea was I thought if you're going on a trip for like a week or two, you need a place for your dirty laundry, you need a place for your shoes, you need a place for your laptop, because they wanted one bag for everything. So it was like, it opened like a clam, and then you could have two separate compartments, where you could put your shoes, and then there was another slot for your laptop. Anyway, the bottom line is, at the end, when I tried to have it made, the factories are like, no way. Like this is like, and it was wax cotton, leather, and then, and this was interesting too, because we basically, the whole design process with Virgin was very much interactive. So we had it, so they said, well, you've been to Australia, right? And I said, no. And they said, well, we're going to have to send you to Australia so you can be inspired to make this bag, So,
Not a bad deal.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really nice, and they flew. It was like unbelievable going to like Lizard Island, and like lunch. It was crazy. It was like this crazy thing. But so in the end, the whole trip was basically I would tweet from different places, and then people would comment on it. So, one thing, for example, that was interesting was, we couldn't do anything with wheels because it was just too small, and also the quantities were too small. So, logistically, it wouldn't really make sense. So, I wanted to have like a backpack strap. So, typically, they're always done on the, like if you have like a bag, it just sort of zips out from the back, and then you pull out the straps. So, so we were designing it, and then we sort of put that back for feedback, and someone had said it's kind of gross having the straps there, and because of because then the bag is always on the floor. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, that's right, that's true, but that's the only place it ever is. But it's like, you put it in you go in the bathroom, airport or something, and you put it on the floor, and it's kind of gross. So I had to rethink that after it was already designed, and then we kind of came up with this way of doing it where it was one strap on the front, and then I created like two little hooks, so you can kind of like separate it and then put it on your back. And it was a fun project. But so the point is, after doing that, and after actually designing this bag for them, we had to figure out like where we're going to get leather and where we're going to get hardware, and how are we going to make a prototype, a three-dimensional prototype for this bag and all this stuff. And after doing all this work, we thought, what, maybe this is the time to start making handbags. So. Long story short, that's...
A few more
That's the
slides
handbag.
here. Feel free to stop when you want to talk
Sure.
about
Yeah, I mean, this was just inspired. Actually, this was just I was looking through old books on the Beatles, and I always thought, you know, there's so many, and Bob Dylan, you know, and he would have these blazers that were just like high, kind of, you know. So that was sort of the inspiration.
Is that a velvet
there.
bow tie?
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah, we use a lot of the same fabrics, and that was, you know, those are one of our first jeans that we did. You know, we still don't do many jeans, but that was a kind of neat fabric, and that
I
was
like
the
how
same.
that ties
Might
into
be the
her
same
suit,
fabric.
too.
It was the same thing there.
So actually, as far as Ed mentioned, we had fun trying on clothes yesterday in your store. So I would love to hear your thinking behind who the,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, that
the
hat
man
is something
that
that
Stephen Allen made.
we do that every season, and it's just a cashmere beanie, you know, little hat, but it's the most comfortable thing. You know, in New York, you need one every day, and it's just like one of our classic basic things that we do. And this was one of our outerwear pieces that did well.
GQ just tweeted about that cap.
Yeah, I saw that. And the inside, I don't know if you can see it here, but there's always so much attention to
I
detail.
see the lining.
So that's this Japanese indigo fabric that we use for the lining. And we definitely put a lot of, like, more than we need to, I think, because it's just, I always feel like once you own it and you wear it, that's the thing, and you want to love it. You know, it's not so much that whether you're going to buy it, but once you buy it, you want that to be like your favorite.
You want to feel
piece.
like it's a one of a kind.
And so, like, I think the pockets on this, we did like corduroy pockets and stuff like that. That was really neat.
Should get another one.
And then this was like, it was just a knit poncho, and
I
someone
believe
here
this
might
dress is
be
in the
wearing this.
audience.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire. And then, and there's usually just subtle things. I mean, this is another one of our shirts that's sort of signature, and the collar is smaller than a normal button-down collar would be. It's also less structured, so, you know, it's something that almost all our shirting goes in the wash, and I'm probably the worst with it. I mean, the recommended instructions are washing and then just like, kind of like hang drying. But I just do everything. I just wash and dry.
We're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, and then this was another fabric that was just neat that we developed, and
I've seen this this print on several things in your store. You have it as,
we have
as a skirt, as the lining of a jacket.
Well, because because we're made in New York. What's interesting is that we always have leftover fabric, and it's like, what are we going to do? And you know, literally one day there was a magazine. There was a GQ magazine. This girl was wearing these panties on the cover, and I was like, why don't we make those? You know, because we have leftover. And I was like, that'll be really kind of, in a way, it'll be hot. You know, it was like this weird thing, but we wanted to make
hot shorts.
These like ruffle panties. So we did, and it ended up being like one of our best-selling things. And it was like, it's hard to wear like with clothes, but you wear it just like around the house.
I wanted to ask,
totally practical. Totally practical.
I wanted to ask you about this one. I read somewhere that you were inspired by the mountain climbers in Yosemite in the 60s, like Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia.
Yeah.
And the turtleneck underneath the sweater really reminds me of that.
That was this whole thing was there was a book, Yosemite in the 60s, and in that book there's sort of like this element there, and so we designed the men's collection first, almost entirely before we started thinking about the women, and then we're like, okay, what about the women? Like, what is the concept going to be about the women? And I just kept thinking, like, this is like the girl that goes to Berkeley that's dating that guy, and then that was the
Perfect.
That was the duality.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, well, I think we should move along.
That coat, that beige coat, was really great.
one right
And also, this was like something like probably in the beginning I never would have thought about doing leopard, but there was something about.
You also have a skirt too that's leopard, right?
Yeah. The thing about being a small company is you really have to figure out. You know, there's always fabric minimums. So whenever you're making something, it's like you have to make 500 yards of it. So if you can cross over, you know, so it kind of forces you to be more creative in terms of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So next we have queued up one of Stephen's videos. You do 2 or 3 videos a year, video commercials, as you put out your lines, spring, summer, and fall. And they're really playful, and I think it's a great way to find out a little bit more about the personality behind the brand. So this is a short one. We're going to watch it together.
heard it on the street. A memory is still a memory if you saw it on TV or in a dream or heard it on the street. You can unknowingly believe anything. You can unknowingly believe anything. You can unknowingly believe anything. You can unknowingly believe anything.
So my all-time favorite was, I think it was spring, summer 2010. It was actually like a mini movie. You follow this couple, Henry and Claire, and they were played by Matt Creed, who's a DJ in New York.
Oh, you know.
And yeah. And I think her name is Leanne Balaban. She's an actress, often mistaken for Natalie Portman.
In Canada, they call her that.
Yeah. And it was a really cool video. It was this little mini movie. You actually make a cameo in it. It was directed by Adam Levitt, who's done music videos for Beck and The National, and so really, really cool. Needless to say, I sort of like really fell for your brand when I saw this video. I was sort of like, that's the life I want. You know, it's this couple. They like escape the city during the summer, and they go out and find out, well, there's a certain monotony to the countryside as well, and so they become disaffected. But then ultimately, they have this party. It's really fun. So really inspired by it. Needless to say, and. So a friend of mine and I came across this car, and it really reminded us of the art direction in that video, and so we bought it.
Really?
We bought it, and we named it Henry, okay, after the character in that video. We were going to drive it across the country. It's this 84 Volvo that we bought for $2,000, and it got as far as the border of California, and it died. So.
I think Steven's afraid of you now.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway.
That's such a great story.
Yeah, cheers.
You're at a loss for words.
So anyway, hopefully that can segue into our next section. That's fashion and technology. And so we want to talk about where you find inspiration on the internet, and you know how you use technology in your life. So, do you
And
have
for your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely online a lot. I mean, I wake up super early and I'm just like, I have like 2 hours where I'm just, you know, I think that, you know, sites like Supply are really good, you know, because it's, you know, allows you to, you know, my friends have that site, Refinery 29, which is interesting. Yeah, there's so many now. In New York, I feel like every week there's someone that's coming up with some site, you know, and more and more people are definitely on sites like Pinterest.
Are you on Tumblr?
We have it registered, but it's just logistically it's so hard to sort of do. We just started, you know, Instagram, you know, as a company about a month ago, and but for example, like Supply, we have a Supply button on our site that you can
just clip
like add to
something
your
to your
Supply,
Supply account.
And we suggested that to them. They didn't have that functionality actually, but we're like, why don't you put it on other people's sites?
Yeah.
You know, and so they were like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Genius.
But yeah, it works. Yeah.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about your blog. I know we have that queued up right behind us.
Yeah, there's some really cool videos on your blog. We have pictures. Well, this is a picture from your blog, but you have these videos where you're going around New York, just you know, trying out new restaurants or checking out
Yeah,
some
we're
new-
just really getting our feet wet with it because I mean, there's so much stuff that we want to do, and you know, we represent in the showroom now about 22 designers, so we really want it to be, you know, not just I mean, the world of Stephen Allen is not just about me; it's also about, you know, all the people that we work with, and you know, there's so many interesting, like Wendy, you know, or Whit actually, who was on the video in Williamsburg, you know, the little breakfast thing.
Yep.
She's someone that we represent, and you know, there's so many great people. So we have all these things lined up, not just designers that we represent, but also other designers. So in our store, we carry, in addition to our brand, not all the designers that we rep, but some of them, and then other designers that we don't rep as well.
So it sounds like all these different platforms on the net have helped you increase the value of your brand.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
It's so fun, and it's just like one of those things where it's just frustrating because there's so much stuff that you want to do. Like you want to be active in Foursquare, and you want to be active
It's
in Instagram.
overwhelming.
You want to,
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like we're, you know, there's only so many people. We're still not a big company. You know?
Do you find that some of this change has been disruptive? I mean, surely it has in terms of like distribution and communication channels, but just for the fashion industry at large, has technology in any way hurt, you know,
I think it's just
Or how are they
it
affecting
is
each other?
it is the industry now, and if you're not submersed in it, then you're not relevant, really. I think, you know, you have to be, because you have to engage with who's buying your product, and there's no better way to do that. I mean, people aren't, you know, writing letters and stuff. So, and I think more and more companies. I think in the beginning there was real concern about sort of like, well, what if someone says something bad? You know, then what do you do? You know, like on forums and stuff like that. And then it was just kind of like, yeah, if they do, then, and if your company is solid, then you're going to have other people kind of coming in and defending you,
yeah.
and you know.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just having a great product. You know, it all comes out of the product, and then the company is a reflection of that.
So just checking time, we're running well, but we want to have a chance to open the
Sure.
forum to questions from the audience. So
Yeah.
without further ado, if anyone has a question, I see already one. Feel free.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
I had a question about sort of fashion across America. I feel like your stores are pretty coastal, but I'm hoping that America's getting more fashionable, like with the internet and reading fashion blogs and things like that. I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about how the industry has changed with regard to the internet, and then maybe non-coastal cities getting more fashionable by being exposed to more things online.
Can you repeat the question before you?
Yeah, the question is sort of like, you know, as a brand, we've become very relevant in, you know, the coast, New York and LA, and now San Francisco, but sort of the rest of America, what's going on with the rest of America, and how do we stay relevant to everyone else? And I think for us, it's interesting because having a showroom and also wholesaling the brand, so we sell our brand to about 300 stores around the world, so we have a pretty good idea in terms of where else there's demand. And then just by having the website, you know, shipping directly, we can you know, zone into zip codes and see. And what I've noticed is it's not at all just New York and LA anymore. I mean, we're shipping to Madison, and we're shipping to Portland. I mean, all over the place. And I feel like there's great cafes opening up everywhere. I think that certainly the web has sort of enlightened everybody in terms of like what's possible. And, you know, coffee would be an example, and, you know, going into Whole Foods and seeing like 5 different types of salt. And, you know, I feel like everyone is kind of sort of fast forwarding now in terms of like what's going on.
If the guy asks you for advice on their wardrobe, how do you approach the question? Do you have staples that you suggest someone have in their closet, or do you think at all about, you know, whittling down quantity, the things that you really wear? Can you talk about your advice?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it is that you're doing, but assuming that you can sort of dress casually, I mean, it's always, for me, it's always my shirts. I mean, that's what my staple is, and jeans, and but it's what you feel comfortable with, and then that, you know, you just try to find the best of that. That's what I always try to do, you know, and then, yeah, I feel like there's not one thing for everybody that I recommend.
I love the fit of men's shirts. That's why one of the main reasons I've kept coming back to your stores. I've always wondered why other companies just like don't get it. Why is it that there are so many ill-fitting men's shirts out there, like silhouettes and baggy?
I wonder the same thing. And then the only thing I can think of, is that because it's more democratic to do that. So if you're a big, big company and you've got to cater to sort of the average male across America, you kind of have to be much bigger. And because you're totally right. I mean, that was the whole inspiration with making shirts in the beginning, was that everything I was trying on was like so big, and not only was it so big, but the fabrics weren't right. It didn't look right. Like if I wanted to wear a shirt out, it just felt like just didn't look right.
I completely agree with you, and I find that that's actually changing, maybe led by designers like you, but I think some designers like J. Crew now are responding, and their shirts are a little bit more form-fitting, and now I'm finding for the first time ever I'm buying mediums as opposed to smalls, which previously I was swimming in, like you say.
Yeah, there's definitely a response to it, because I think that magazines are making such a big push in terms of that, and really educating, and obviously online media now as well.
How do you see going in the future kind of evolving on your current designs? Do you feel like you're going to have these shirts, the styles that you currently have in the cuts that you currently have for a long time, or just thinking out of one of your shirts is the perfect fit for my boyfriend, and I don't want to have to go out and try to find another fit shirt for him. But a lot of stores, they go and they iterate designs over and over again, and then people find a design that will exist for a year, and then it won't exist again.
That's true. Or what happens, another thing that happens, I see it a lot with women's, is you'll have this amazing fitting, like let's say a women's pant, and it's like perfect, and then the next season it's like totally different fit. And it's like, why would they do that? It was perfect. And I think it's because they get, again, as companies get bigger, then they get bigger customers, and then all of a sudden these department stores are like, you need to make it a little bit more, bigger here and more generous there, and then all of a sudden it's like, it doesn't stand for anything. It's like not for this person or that person. It's like this generous thing that just fits a lot of people, but it doesn't fit anyone particularly well. Are you guys sticking around? We definitely, we've had things on the line for many seasons, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll take it off the line, and then a couple seasons will go, and then we'll put it back on the line. And for example, this season, when we first did the men's reverse seam shirt, it fit differently than it does now. And starting in fall of 2012, we're going to bring back that in addition to the new fit. It's just going to be the relaxed fit. But relaxed fit for me was not relaxed compared to what, like the shirts that you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm one of the people who prefers performance fabrics, but I love classic clothes. And it's really hard to find like the blazers that I saw shop. For example, right now, Cisco makes clothes that way. What are your feelings about moving into sort of out of cottons and into some of the high performance fabrics for people who are, they want a jacket that doesn't get soaked on the way to the office, things like that.
We do that, not so much with hyper, but we'll use a lot of wax cotton for that reason, like a lot of natural fabrications that do that. But we also carry brands in the store that do that well. Like there's a great brand of men's that you would like called Outlier, teeny tiny company, but they make they make a jean that's made out of this fabric from Sweden that's like the super high performance shoulder. Yeah, exactly. And it's great. I wore it on the plane yesterday. So I do respond to it. I just feel like I don't want to do anything that we can't do really well. And so.
Where do I get it from? Really a new high performance fabric, but plastic.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking of who, maybe like, what is that company that does the wool? Do you like wool? Like the, because there is that non-itchy. No, I'm just thinking of that. There was a company that does some good. But yeah, for you at this point, it might be just finding a shirt that you love and just buying some fabric, Cool Max fabric or something like that, or whatever fabric that you like.
Sounds like a startup.
Yeah. But it's definitely bigger and bigger, and the whole, biking in particular is a huge category now where there's what's a company that the Italian company, biking company. Does anyone know? Rafa, yeah, exactly, which is doing like pretty amazing stuff. And we did a collaboration with a bike company in New York called Chari & Co. And we did a couple things. We did a shirt that has a knit collar here, and it zips all the way up. And then the pocket, instead of it being a regular pocket, it just has a little tab of Velcro on the inside, and then like a little thing like that, so you can sort of open and close it. And then it had a zipper. It has a zipper on the back, so you could just like store your stuff, and it was a little bit longer. And that was like one thing that we did, and we did another sweatshirt for them and stuff. Sorry.
Just a quick question for you. So I love the insight that you brought, the no brand. Clearly you care about your brand, you stand for a lot of things. My husband is one of those people who literally takes exacto notes to anything with a brand or logo, so I just think that's brilliant, and you should keep doing it. I'm kind of similar, I like ATC and things like that have fun, themes, lines, etc. So I'm just kind of curious, thinking bigger about kind of creating a brand without having a logo or some kind of, synonymous label, right? What are those elements that you bring into that's ubiquitous with, beyond the, reverse seam and the fine fabrics and the patterns? What do you go back to? And it kind of is back to that design and inspiration question, but what do you go back to? Like, what's your ethos, and how do you stay centered? Because I feel like we go through that with Google, right? We're a huge brand, we're ubiquitous for technology, but we're breaking into new things like products, et cetera. And so I'm personally kind of in this fight/path of staying true to our core, and so I'd love to hear you talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me, it's definitely, I like there to always be like a value there, like an added value, like give them like so much stuff. And, it's usually just the subtleties, the fabric, the insides, the linings, the pockets, and then the fit has a lot to do with it, the treatments that we do. So when we make women's silk pieces, we might wash them, the buttons that we're using. But then in the end, there's something that's just like a little bit quirky, a little bit different, and it feels to me less mass. Like there's nothing that we've done that I could look at and say like that looks like it was made in like this massive factory or something. And it never is. And it's always something that, because of the quantities that we're doing. And one of our big, initiatives is to open a lot more stores, because by opening a lot more stores, we're going to be able to position ourselves where we'll be able to do different things, because we're not really a department store brand. So whereas most brands that you look at, 75%, 80% of their business is done sort of mass, and that customer is a different customer than our customer. So we're really a neighborhood, so it's about opening up in great neighborhoods around the country, and then being able to get to a certain size where if we want to do knits or we want to do t-shirts, or like right now with some of our factories, they're like, you're not doing nearly the quantity that you have to do. So at least to get to a minimum level where we can make, different types of products than what we're doing now. Because now we're, in woven shirting, we're fine. But if we want to get into, so we just started suiting and, things like that.
So I was thinking, where are the majority of your shirts manufactured? Do you think it makes a difference as to where they're manufactured, or is it mostly in the initial design that the quality comes from?
Well, it's not so much the initial design, but it's the construction and the fabrication. But we make most of them, pretty much all of them in New York, except for the ones that were garment dyed. And the reason why we did those out of Peru, because we found this Pima cotton that we liked that just dyed really well. And since we were able to do one color and then dye it, so we were able to do that. And those were a less expensive shirt than the other ones. But yeah, it's just, I think that where we do it, I think doing it in New York for us is about being able to do smaller quantities. So much of the collection is, there's just like, there could be 30 different fabrics. So you can't really do that in China. It would be very, very difficult because the factories don't want to do that. They want to do one style and one fabric and like 5,000 of them. And we like to be able to just constantly change things. So, a white shirt we might have on the line for several seasons, but when you buy something this season and it's something that we design, and in the beginning, we used to go to the jobbers and like literally buy scraps of like well, you know, there'd be 20 yards here, 100 yards there, and we would buy it and we'd make it, and then that would be it. And then after that, we kind of outgrew that, and then we started buying from lines where they just show you like a library of fabrics, and we'd pick what we liked, and then after that, we would kind of exhaust these libraries. And then what we found now is that we start from the beginning. We start from like on the computer, designing the fabrications, and you know, and that's kind of like what we do. So yeah, I mean, it's possible to make a good quality garment and not do it in New York. It's certainly possible. You know, it just depends on your relationship with the factory and your relationship with the fabric mill, and making sure that, you know, they're both good.
So I think that's a perfect segue, because I see you actually brought some samples for us to look at
I
here.
did.
So maybe we can talk about maybe some of your favorite pieces that you brought.
I just picked up a few things from Resort, just because that's what's in the stores now. And spring's going to be shipping. Spring's going to be shipping in like I don't know, a week or two. So then we'll have the new stuff. So here it's just like, it's a crew neck sweater. It's really just like about the hand of the fabric. You know, little things like when we're designing, we might look at the neck and, you know, try it on, and then sort of like, how do you want to wear that? And you wear it over a t-shirt, so how much of the t-shirt do you want to show? You know, little things like that. This one also has a pocket, which, you know, was sort of different. And then inside the pocket is lined with like a woven fabric as well. It's all tonal. But I hadn't seen that. I haven't seen that anywhere. You know, so again, that's just like a little thing that we did. And, you know, this is just an example of a single needle shirt in one of our fabrics that we designed. And again, you know, you can see the collar is pretty small. It's also pretty relaxed. It's not a stiff collar. This one here is...
Stephen, I don't want to interrupt you, but why don't we thank him for coming out and